Hi guys, and welcome to a brand new Kloofsuits tutorial. In this series I'm going to be making Fursuit Bodysuit, showing you every step of the process and giving you a walkthrough commentary all the way through. The bodysuit features Digitigrade padding, a dropped crotch, zipper in the front, and various sewn in markings. I'm going to be making the pattern pieces from scratch to keep for the future, so there will be a lot of mistakes along the way, and I'll talk you through what I do wrong to make sure you don't do the same thing. I'm less experienced in bodysuit making, though I have made a fair few, so don't expect this to be flawless. This is not the correct way, nor is it even my way, as you'll see me trying to work out new techniques in an attempt to work out the most consistent way of making a bodysuit. This is just a guide, so please use common sense and care to use all tools in a safe way, and I am not responsible for any injury that may occur. With all of that out of the way, please do enjoy the tutorial, and I'd love to see anything you make with my guidance. So the first thing that I need to note is that I've actually already cut and made the pattern for the knee pieces for this. So what I'm going to do is just show you from that point onwards. I am just carving out of foam the basic shape for the pieces that I'm going to need. You don't have to use foam. You can make the shapes out of newspaper if you want, or anything that you can sculpt with, which you can then tape over to make a pattern out of. You're going to want to constantly try these pieces on the duct tape dummy for the model that you're using. You can possibly use the same pieces for different heights and weights of people, but you're going to need to be able to work out the placement as well. So keep your duct tape dummy handy. If you don't have a rack to hang it on, you can use the floor, not a problem. Just makes it a little bit awkward. I've only just sort of got this rack sorted in the past couple of months or so. This is the first time I get to use it, so I'm quite excited. But just make sure you're constantly eyeing up the pieces next to each other. It also helps to take a picture, trace around the outline, and then turn off the opacity for the picture layer. That gives you a good idea of the silhouette and the basic shapes. What I'm doing now is taping up the foam blank that I've made for the pattern pieces. I'm just going to tape one half so that it's going to be symmetrical on both sides. And then just take a ruler to make sure you cut the edges straight so you can flip them easy enough. Draw a line, cut them out. You're going to want one piece for the base that goes against your leg, and however many pieces it takes to get the correct shape for each side of the piece. So next up, you're obviously going to need to cut the pattern pieces out on fabric. So what I do is I just back the tape onto newspaper. Any kind of paper works. Newspaper is cheap and easy. And just cut it out with a seam allowance. Oh, excuse me. And then what you're going to be able to do is just copy those pieces directly onto your fabric, cut them out, including the seam allowance, so the seam allowance is the same on each piece, and you don't get something that's too big on one side and too small on the other to distort the shape. So I just use a cheap cotton fabric. Any kind of fabric works as long as it's, you don't want something that's too expensive. All it's going to do is make the basic shapes for the pillows, which will be the sort of body of the shapes that you're getting here. All of these are going to be sewn or velcroed or zipped, whatever, into your bodysuit as it is. They're not going to be seen, so it doesn't really matter what they look like. You just want to obviously make sure it's relatively professional for the inside of your costume. Nice and straightforward, just as you'd always use a sewing machine. You're just pinning the pieces together and sewing them together on the machine, right sides together. I mean, the fabric I'm using doesn't have a right side, so it doesn't matter which you do. Just make sure you turn it inside out to keep all the seams on the inside of the pocket once you're done. Don't sew it all up, leave the pocket of course, so when you turn it inside out you can stuff it and then sew it up. You're going to want to keep coming back to your duct tape dummy, putting your pieces on there, pinning them down. They'll move each time you try it, just so you can get a better idea of how it's going to lay out on the mannequin, how it's going to translate into a costume shape. So you can see I'm using the take a picture technique, which I'll use all the time just to make sure that it's constantly getting the right silhouette shape from the side, which is the very key part of Digitigrade padding. The black fabric there, that's just a lycra, just the stretchiness on the inside will help it maintain the shape when the leg bends. Next I'm going to have a go at the butt padding. So Digitigrade is made up of 4 pieces: the butt, the knee, the back of the foot, and the front of the foot. So what I'm just going to do now is make a start on the back. I did start with some carved foam that I'd used previously. However, this wasn't working with the stuffed pillow method, so in the end I just traced out the approximate shape. cut it out, and then you're not going to know how it works until you stuff the pillow and take a look. So that's exactly what I did, and I happen to be happy with how it came out. I'm just using the tail here because obviously the final piece will have the tail on it. You can just see how it sits on the legs, over the butt, between the legs. Just make sure that'll all work as a costume. Same as the pieces before, trace around your butt piece there. I included the seam allowance in the pattern again. You're just going to sew that together, stuff it, pop it on the mannequin, see how it looks. At this point you can see I also decided to just cut out some of the pieces for the other leg, seeing as I had the chance to do that. You're going to need, 2 copies of each leg, of course, because you've got 2 legs. It's quite basic there. So while I had just a bit of space free, I put in some more of the pieces there. The only way you're really going to know how the whole thing looks is obviously when you've got both legs together, so why not go ahead and cut both those pieces out now? No point getting too far making the pattern, etc. when you can't see both legs together. That's really not going to be very beneficial. So same as forever, just copy the pieces, cut them out, pin them together. I use bulldog clips, not pins. That works out better for me. Just whiz them through on the sewing machine. Doesn't have to be terribly neat. I mean, make sure the lines are straight, but you don't need to be absolutely perfect. Doesn't matter what colour thread you use. Nobody's going to see this. Just make sure it looks, presentable for the inside of the costume. Again, the lycra is not necessary. I just use it on the underside of the actual knee because that's where you're going to get the most, bend in your leg with movement. So that extra bit of stretch there will stop the actual knee shape, the visible knee of the costume from distorting when you step. It'll just bend a little bit cleaner with your knee, that's all. Not necessary. I'm not sure it'll make a massive difference. However, I'm hoping it will at least smooth out a little bit. At this point there is quite a little bit of repetition. There's not really a lot I can say, so I've kind of got these big gaps in the audio. I'm just taking this big gap here just to let you know that. I do apologise. There's not really a lot I can do with that space. I can't really repeat the same thing to you. I'm trying to tell you as much as I can as I go, so when it comes to a moment like this, it's just a bit like, okay, yeah, you can watch me sew the same thing over and over again. Can't even really see what I'm doing because it's sped up like 16 times. But, it's okay. We can deal with that. However, one thing I will just add into this little slot is, if you do have any questions about any of these processes, please do not hesitate to ask me. I mean, a lot of I read all the comments, but I honestly struggle to keep up with replying to all of them. But I'm always happy to help if I can. I love to see what you've done with my tutorials. Feel free to hit me up with a message on Facebook, for example. For Affinity Note, I'll do my best to help you out as much as I possibly can, but do please appreciate that I'm a very busy person with a lot going on in my life. So if I don't get back to you, please don't be too disheartened, but I will do everything I can to be able to talk to each and every one of you about what you're having problems with and see how I can help with that. You can just see me stuffing the pieces here for the legs. Doesn't have to be terribly dense, you don't have to make it rock solid. It doesn't have to be too light and fluffy that it doesn't hold its shape, so try and find a good midpoint there. You're probably going to need a fair bit of stuffing using this method. In the long run, it's probably cheaper than foam, especially if you're going to make the foam pattern and then just copy that in order to make multiple sewn patterns. But I don't sew the pieces up this early. You're going to want to put them into place as you go. And decide for yourself how dense or how loose you want them stuffed, which you can't really tell until a little bit later on in the process. Quick note at the end, guys, I'm really not very good at recording audio, can you tell? I'm doing my best. I hope I improve by the end of this series, but I'm doing it a little bit differently to how I would normally record my audio because it was just not working out, me doing it all in one go. Any feedback, that's totally cool. Do please let me know, and you know, I'll take all of that on board. I want you to enjoy the videos, not get annoyed with my audio, for example.